One thing I noticed when I got my new Daniel Defense and it came with a standard Gen 2 Pmag was that 220 grain or large subsonic bullets tend to cross over one another when loading, and it binds up inside. You'll see kind of a similar problem when you watch TWANGnBANG's video with some other subsonic ammunition like the Maximum Expansion by Lehigh Defense, but the Pmag still shows issues even with just standard FMJ or hollow point cheap Remington ammo and Federal ammo. So I'll try and demonstrate that here. And see how the back of the case is completely clearing, but it's starting to get a little crooked. And so this is now interfering, and I have to push the nose of the bullet down in order to get it in. And the problem only becomes worse as you load more. So I'm going to try and load another one without pushing the nose down, and let's see what happens. See, the nose is coming up. I can push it down. Nose is popping up. So you can keep feeding it and loading if you force it in. And the primary cause of this is actually these two pieces of plastic that are coming through. It's really made for 5.56 or 223 where the bullets are narrow diameter and they don't actually come in contact with these sides as much as the 300 Blackout. Fully loaded there. And so it's not just the only concern of loading, so I'll seat them all, make sure they're all seated to the back, but also when I'm removing the cartridges, they get bound up. So here, this cartridge almost with no force at all comes out because it's bound underneath. So you'll see here, I'm barely pushing at all to get these out. And I'm just afraid that'll lead to some malfunctions. So I have a friend who comes from Lubbock and tells me that the H&K clear mags run 300 Blackout much better than the standard Pmags. So let's go ahead and try and load one of those up. Here are the new H&K magazines that I got, the translucent ones, and we'll try and load the same 300 Blackout Federal 220 grain Subsonic. a little bit more forgiving than the Pmags. So that's fully loaded. Looks a lot cooler, that's for sure. Let's see if it gives reasonable resistance to get them out. Oh yeah. It requires quite a bit more force to get the cartridges out. Actually, there's a problem there. Where some of the noses are actually pulling up on the front of the magazine, so we'll have to do a test of that when shooting. But I think if you just slap the back of the magazine before loading it, that would solve that problem. But there is quite a bit more resistance to do it. Here, why don't you give it a shot?
Yeah, there's definitely more resistance than before. For sure.
We do have a windowed Gen 3 Pmag, so I figured we'd just give it a shot. You can see here the M3. So let's give this a try, see if it remedies the problem. So it looks like it's already getting a little bit of an angle to it, where this round is really favoring one side of the magazine. And there it's starting to cross. See, it's pointing up ever so slightly, the round below. So you can see again that the round below is pointing up and they tend to cross, so that concerns me a little bit. If it's already, you know, functioning a little oddly when loading, that it might have a similar issue when trying to feed the rifle. So that's already a little bit more comforting on the side of the HK, as opposed to the Pmags. Let's get down to the 30th round. And then we'll unload it and see the resistance that it has, because the other Pmag, the Gen 2, as you remember, was very easy to unload. It took very little to no force to unload it, as opposed to the H&K, which feels like a very normal amount of resistance in order to strip the top cartridge. Pointing up again. Okay, so that's 30. I don't know. I'm a little impartial to the H&K at this point. It is significantly larger than the Pmags. Here's the Gen 2. So let's just try unloading it real quick. So first round was actually pretty stiff, but after that, I can almost just run my finger past it. And see, there's a little bit of a delay with the rounds coming up after I push out the cartridge. See, there's it's getting stiff again. It's pretty inconsistent. But I think it's as we're getting to the bottom. Let's see, these got really, oh, that one got stiff. These are getting easy. So it's pretty inconsistent about how it unloads the Pmags. The H&K stays pretty stiff when unloading, but both of these are having an issue when you feed. The round below the top tends to cross up, and sometimes they cross noses. So I do feel a lot more confident about putting this in my rifle using the 220 grain subsonic loads. And I think I'll just keep the 5.56s for exactly that, the Pmags for the 5.56. So there you have it. We'll try and do a video of it functioning in the rifle.